Content warning. Cursing. The dream.
Okay, so I'm Tony Glenn, and I had a dream last night. This is the dream I had. And I had the dream right here where we're sitting right now. We're sitting on the bed where I had the dream. So I was in a car. I was with family or close friends. We were going somewhere off to do something important. I can't remember that. But I do remember we had to stop and pick up somebody who was a friend of somebody's. I think they were related to someone in the car. But this fellow was very annoying. He was really touchy, and he was touching me all the time, and he was like getting very close to everybody, and he was just really, really, really annoying. And I had to at one point put him out of the car. I was very annoyed with him, and I need to get out of the car. And I thought I was rid of him. But then the next scene that I kind of remember is down by an old church, a beautiful old church that was surrounded by beautiful trees and a little stone wall around the church. So I couldn't sort of see the trunks of the trees or the stems of the trees, because there was a wall around it. You could just see the tops of the trees. And then the trees silently just began to sort of fall over. I was like, what's going on? And I went over and behind the wall to look. And there was Mr. Annoying Man with a chainsaw that made no sound at all. It was a silent chainsaw. And he cut down all these beautiful trees. And I was furious with him. I didn't get to him in time. He cut them all down. And I was so angry with him that I remember yelling at him that furious. I was going to kill him. And he was very smug at that point because for some reason that was the response he was trying to get out of me. And he sort of had this, and I had this sense, oh yeah, I gave him what he wanted. He wanted me to say that. He wanted me to lose my temper, and he wanted me to tell him that I was going to kill him. And that's what I remember.
What does it mean? What does it mean? What does it mean? This was in a way, remember when we heard Brianna's dream, what was that one called? The one about like her privacy getting intruded on a bunch of times.
The journal.
Yeah.
What was it called?
I don't remember. But in that one, Brianna's episode, I remember when we listened to it, we were both like, whoa, like Brianna seems so chill. And then in this dream, it's interesting to hear her lose her temper. I feel sort of similarly about this with Tony, is like he is so lovely all the time that to think of him being so incredibly irritated with someone and to yell at someone that he wants to kill them is like
yeah, man, I'm right there with you. I was like, this is interesting. This is you practicing being angry because it doesn't necessarily happen very often or ever in real life.
Yeah.
It's like exercising out that experience so you don't ever have to actually have it.
I mean, in a way, it made me think of, this is departing from being baseless, but I've heard tell that when Tony was a child, he's the youngest of 4, and that he was he would have temper tantrums and he would get teased a lot by his older brother, especially. And then he would really lose it. And so I feel like maybe this is sort of a return to that feeling. It's like somebody who is trying to get you to lose it.
He's definitely being provoked that the fact that the person is was clearly that's what they were trying, that's a reaction they were trying to achieve.
Yeah.
It's and I feel almost the most frustrating part.
Yeah, the smugness at the end is what makes him the most frustrating human being.
Yeah.
Because it does return me to childhood things, both with siblings and with other kids. I feel like that's a thing that kids do a lot to each other, is just to try to push each other over the edge so that then it's the other person who breaks and gets in trouble for losing it and not you for being the one who's
It's so classic. And especially the first segment of it, before we get to the silent chainsaw and the trees coming down, what he's doing to be annoying is just being too close and touchy, which is just such a sibling thing, right? Poking you, just being in your space, until you want to just attack them to get them out of your space, like kick them out of the car, like totally. That it definitely seems like something. And the person was related to somebody in the car. He thought never thought necessarily it was himself, but it was still like that family vibe was there.
Yeah, it's like, this is a person who's close to you because of ties that you should respect, but then you just can't.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, and I feel like cars in dreams are often sort of your sense of control and personal space too. Like,
oh yeah, totally.
Generally, when
your
people,
independence and
yeah, it's like when people are in their car, it's like they're making choices, doing the thing, protecting their space.
Yeah. And, and having to pick somebody up, like they were doing something nice, like inviting that person to ride in their car, like as a favor, probably.
Yeah.
And then the fact that they disrespect that favor so hard.
Yeah.
Yeah. I don't know.
I mean, it's interesting because in that first part, you don't necessarily, I don't get proof that it was actually annoying to the point where it was justified that he gets kicked out of the car, which again, in a way, makes me think of it being like childhood where, these things are so annoying, but you can't even really describe why they're so annoying, but it's mostly that you can feel the person is trying to annoy you in some way or whatever. Because like that part, it does feel sort of childish that the guy would get kicked out of the car for that, just being too touchy.
Being like
or like not following social cues enough or whatever. But then later, when we get to that second scene, it's such a different vibe once we get to the church.
It's like he's doing something that's like clearly not cool. Like this is like a space that's should be revered in a way. Like forests, like old forests, like have definitely the same feeling as like churches do for some people of being these like sort of these like spaces of reverence, and to cut it down, definitely not chill, not a chill move. But also like note that the chainsaws were silent. So there was still an element of like maybe it not being like it's visible, like visually visible, but like what he was doing was not super, like it was not as explicit as it could have been. There was still an element of like, does nobody like see this happening?
Right. Which again, it feels like the kid thing. It's like you can't even point to the fact that it's like there isn't enough warning or there's nothing that other people are necessarily paying attention to. It's happening in this way that's kind of sneaky. Because the silent thing to me just felt like sneak. He's just being a sneak. He's just doing it so that no one can stop him before it's already done.
Yeah. And then all of a sudden Tony's there with all these cut down trees. Yeah.
And Tony loves trees so much. Tristan has told me that, so Tony is my partner's father, for context, but Tristan has told me that Tony used to like guerrilla plant trees around in their town and stuff, it's like trees, I feel like the whole thing about it being a church and trees is because trees really are sacred for him.
Yeah, it's a very pointed, that makes it a very pointed attack on him, really. Yeah. On behalf of that guy, like that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So is this just like, okay, because what you said initially was it's like sort of an outlet for those frustrated feelings that maybe he doesn't express in normal life. Like he would never yell at someone, I'm going to kill you. So it's like an opportunity to do that you maybe don't have when you're feeling irritated with people at this point in life. But then to me, it also just feels kind of like a revisitation. It's like you're just kind of like going back into a room that you used to visit a lot in your childhood and just hanging out in there and being like, right, this is a place that I've lived in.
Yeah. Like I think it's like if you're not driving your car for whatever reason, it's good to like turn on the engine and like put it in neutral on rev. A little bit just to like get some movement in there. So it doesn't, I feel like you can do that in dreams with emotions that you don't frequently have. And like the way you access them is to tap into experiences you've had maybe in your childhood or whatever to like trigger that experience so you can like go through it in your dream. I don't know what the benefit would be of like revving the engine of your own anger in your dream, but like
this is what I'm wondering is like thinking about that, like with cars you do that so that the parts don't break down or whatever. It's like cars don't work well if you don't do that every once in a while. Is that like those little connections in your brain of those particular kinds of emotions, if you don't use them, do they grow rusty? Like, does it become a stopped up part then?
I mean, I feel like yes, but just in the way that, like, if you practice feeling a certain way or think, like, if you practice like certain thought patterns, they do become more ingrained.
Right.
And so, I mean, in that sense, like, if you want to be able to feel really angry, you ought to practice feeling really angry in your dreams. But if you don't want to, then, like, practicing feeling angry in your dreams is, like, not helpful.
Yeah. I mean, thinking about it, it's like within the dream itself, it's not fulfilling at all. He doesn't get a release from getting to that point where he's angry.
No, it's just
That's the point of defeat, where he's like, oh, no, I've played right into his hand. And that feels true also when you're a kid. In that circumstance, you know, it's like that smug look when you know that the person is so glad that they've finally made you scream or whatever. Yeah. And so I wonder, it's like, given that in the dream he doesn't have the opportunity to save the trees, I wonder what kind of response would have felt fulfilling in the context of the dream itself. Like, how would Tony have regained a sense of groundedness within this person who's just constantly trying to bat him off of his, you know, of his feet, or like get him riled up? Because you can't just fake that you don't care. That doesn't work.
No, but maybe it's just like an opportunity to exercise like boundless frustration at things that you don't have the opportunity to control.
Do you think I guess there's value. I mean, there's value definitely in venting your frustration, if it's built up in some way. But again, this doesn't feel like a satisfying version of that, or a fulfilling version, or
maybe then it just serves as like as something to compare life to.
Oh,
like you wake up out of it and you're like, wow, nothing makes me feel like that.
Ah, right. Like a marker of distance from the times where you have felt that way. You're like, oh, phew. Yeah. Like, thank goodness that I don't have somebody like that in my life.
Yeah.
That I don't have to go through that. Yeah. I mean, I guess that would be a nice thing.
Or maybe Tony secretly has somebody in his life that makes him feel that way.
Right.
That this is a direct metaphor for, and we just don't know because their chainsaw is silent.
Oh, yeah, could be. And because Tony doesn't scream, I want to kill you. Doesn't give them that satisfaction. Yeah, I wonder what this dream person's motivations were. It seems like when a person is trying to get any kind of reaction, it's because they need a pot. You know, actually, okay. Well, actually, as a kid, I don't know if this is true when you're doing this with your siblings, but it's like a lot of the time when somebody's just trying to get any kind of reaction, like if a little kid is just behaving very badly, sometimes it's just like the routes to a gentler version of attention aren't possible. Like maybe this guy just wants a friend. But you know what? We don't have to take care of him. It's not about that.
Or if it is about that, then you're on your own to figure out how Tony address that. Thanks for listening.
Thank you for listening.
Help us keep making this by subscribing to and reviewing the podcast wherever you listen to it, and following and liking us on social media.
If you love this, you can support us on Patreon.
We will reward you.